For 6 months, the Ashen Strait had been quiet, and on Skyhaven Air Base, quiet mornings were exactly what made veteran pilots nervous. General Farrow ordered a standard patrol, the same routine flown 100 times before. Nothing, he believed, had changed out there. Falcon 2 rolled onto the runway at 0600, one of 2 aircraft assigned to watch a strait that hadn't seen conflict in decades. From above, the strait looked exactly as it always had: calm water, clear skies, and no sign of what was already moving beneath the horizon. They checked this contact. What Mira had flagged as a single contact was, in fact, dozens of ships, the leading edge of an invasion fleet no one had predicted. Admiral Yunbeo had planned this crossing for over a year, believing that speed and surprise would make the operation nearly bloodless. Within minutes, Skyhaven's alert sirens were screaming. Every pilot on base was ordered into the air before the fleet came any closer. For Mira Cade, the calm training flight she'd expected that morning had, in the space of 90 seconds, become something else entirely. Captain Lasco Rain had flown dozens of exercises exactly like this one. What he hadn't expected was how different it would feel to fly it for real. By dawn's second hour, the entire Kalan fleet was underway, the largest single naval movement the region had seen in generations. Every flyable aircraft at Skyhaven was airborne within 11 minutes, a scramble speed the base had only ever achieved in drills. In Anhai City, 20 kilometers inland, civilians heard the sirens before they understood what they meant. The war had arrived without warning. Cade and Rowe flew wing to wing toward a fleet outnumbering them by a margin neither pilot allowed themselves to calculate. Day, fighters launching, bearing 090. Rain's flight closed the distance in under 4 minutes, the 2 air forces converging over open water for the first time in living memory. For a few final seconds, both formations held their fire, a narrow, fragile window in which the entire strait still hung on restraint. That restraint ended the moment a Meridian pilot fired the first warning burst, a shot meant to deter, but heard as a declaration. Admiral Yunbeo absorbed the news without visible reaction. The operation he had planned for a year had just become an open battle. In less than 3 hours, a quiet patrol had become the opening battle of a war neither side had officially declared. Within the first 90 seconds of contact, Meridian's smaller formation was already fighting for position against a numerically superior force. Clear. Go, kid. Rain's skill was immediately apparent. Trained not just to fly, but to think 3 moves ahead of pilots half his experience. The first Meridian aircraft went down 11 minutes into the engagement. The pilot ejected safely, but the illusion of an easy fight did not. They hit him with Meridian's air defenses divided, the Kalan fleet began shelling coastal batteries directly, clearing a path for the ground assaults to follow. Skyhaven itself came under fire within the hour, forcing ground crews to work through active bombardment just to keep aircraft flying. Not every Kalan pilot shared Rain's composure. Several were flying their first true combat mission, and it showed. Cade and Rain passed within meters of each other for the first time, neither pilot yet realizing how many more times that would happen. The loss of Battery 3 left an entire stretch of coastline exposed. The invasion fleet no longer needed to fight for the beach. For the families watching from Anhai City, the smoke on the horizon confirmed what state radio had not yet officially announced. Took a hit, still flying. For the first time that morning, Myra's discipline slipped. The fear of losing the pilot who had trained her outweighed everything else. Barely 2 hours in, Yunbeo's intelligence reports were already proving wrong. Meridian's resistance was stronger than any briefing had suggested. The first wave of landing craft began its approach at 0940, covered by naval gunfire and a dwindling number of Meridian defenders. Hold the beach, no retreat. What remained of Meridian's coastal artillery fired everything it had left, buying minutes, not hours, for the defenders still holding the ridge. Rain was ordered to suppress the shore batteries directly, a mission that put him, for the first time, in the sights of Mira Cade. Break off the What followed was the single most evenly matched exchange either pilot had flown that day, neither able to gain a clean advantage. By 1015, the first Kaelan troops had reached dry sand. The battle for Skyhaven's outer defenses had officially become a ground war. Pharaoh faced a decision no manual prepares a commander for: which line to reinforce, and which to accept losing. For one brief moment, Cade held a clean-firing solution, the kind of opportunity most pilots only get once in a career. Rain's instincts saved him by less than a second, a reaction time that would define the rest of the campaign for both pilots. Second wave incoming. With reinforcements from Kaelan's carriers still inbound, Pharaoh made the only call available: pull every aircraft back to defend the base itself. By midday, the war for the Ashen Strait had narrowed to a single question: could Skyhaven's defenders hold their own airbase? Cade and Rowe brought their damaged formation home under fire, one of the few pairs from the original patrol still flying together. On the ground, Meridian infantry fought to hold a perimeter fence never designed to withstand a real assault. Concentrate west. We hold. Rain's aircraft returned to the carrier with barely enough fuel to land. The fight, he realized, had already outlasted every prediction. 3 Kaelan ships had already been lost, a cost the Admiral had not budgeted for in a campaign meant to end by nightfall. The second Kaelan wave arrived just after noon, meeting a Meridian force now flying with barely half its original strength. Losing power, Cade abandoned formation discipline without hesitation, breaking off to escort her wingman's failing aircraft back toward the runway. Rain was back in the air within 18 minutes, a turnaround the Iron Dawn's deck crew would later call their fastest of the war. In one piece, ordered back into the fight by the very pilot she wanted to protect, Cade faced the hardest instruction she'd received all day. For day then, on the ridge above the beach, a company of 30 Meridian soldiers held a line meant to be defended by 3 times their number. Rather than withdraw and reassess, Yunbeo chose escalation, committing his reserve air wing to force a decision before dusk. The reserve wing's launch brought Kaelan's total committed aircraft to nearly triple what Meridian still had airborne. By early afternoon, Meridian's air wing had been reduced to a fraction of its dawn strength, fighting a battle of attrition it could not win by numbers alone. Then we fight with what's left. Their second duel lasted almost 4 uninterrupted minutes, an eternity in aerial combat, and a testament to how evenly matched they truly were. You fly well, Meridian. After nearly 6 hours of continuous fighting, the ridge line finally gave way. Skyhaven's last outer defense was gone. In Anhai City, evacuation orders finally reached residential districts, hours after the first families had already begun leaving on instinct. Day-Row was pulled to safety with injuries that would end his flying career, but not, as it turned out, his war. Fuel critical. All units disengage, return to base. Rain saw the retreating Meridian jet as one last opportunity and pushed his own damaged aircraft to its structural limit to catch it. With no fuel margin for error, Cade attempted a maneuver she had only ever practiced in training simulations. It was Skyhaven's own ground defenses, not Cade's flying, that ultimately forced Rain to break off the pursuit. Next time, Meridian. Falcon 2 landed with less than 90 seconds of fuel remaining, one of the closest margins Skyhaven's ground crew had ever recorded. For a brief moment on that scarred runway, the 2 pilots allowed themselves something the day had offered almost no room for: relief. We helped. Barely. By nightfall, Kaelan's own losses had exceeded every projection given to Yunbeo before the operation began. Rain later admitted that the day's fighting had changed something in how he understood the mission he'd been given. As darkness fell, an uneasy quiet settled over the strait. The first pause either side had allowed itself in over 12 hours. One day into the war for the Ashen Strait, Mira Cade had already lost more than she'd expected to lose in an entire career. We're still standing. Pharaoh's staff worked through the night, aware that whatever came at dawn would likely be Kaelan's final, decisive push. Yun Bao committed every remaining asset to a single, all-or-nothing assault plan for first light. At what cost, though? By 0500, both fleets understood the same thing. Today's fighting would decide who controlled the Ashen Strait, one way or another. Cade suited up for her fourth sortie in under 24 hours, running on adrenaline where sleep should have been. Every operational Kalen aircraft launched within a single 15-minute window, the largest coordinated strike of the entire campaign. Meridian answered with everything it had left, a smaller force, but one flying with nothing left to hold in reserve. What followed became known simply as the second engagement, the largest single air battle the Ashen Strait had ever seen. For nearly 40 minutes, the sky above the Ashen Strait held more aircraft in combat than either side had ever committed at once. Against medical advice, Day Rowe had returned to the cockpit one final time, determined not to let Cade fly this battle alone. For the first time in his career, Rain hesitated at the exact moment his training told him not to. With both air forces fully committed and neither willing to withdraw, the second engagement had become a battle of pure attrition. Almost out. Mirt, a hit bad. Stay with me, Day. Proud of you, kid. Day Rowe's aircraft went down at 12:52 seconds after he ejected. The outcome, for a long moment, entirely unknown. For several seconds, Mira Cade simply stopped fighting, grief overtaking every instinct her training had built. A rescue crew was already moving toward the wreckage, giving Cade the one piece of hope the moment desperately needed. On me. On the ground, Skyhaven's defenders held a final line barely 300 meters from the runway itself. Send everything left. By early afternoon, Yun Bao faced a question his orders had never accounted for, whether the strait was still worth what it was costing. Cade and Rain met for the third and final time that day, both flying with everything each of them had left to give. This ends now. I hesitated. The half-second hesitation was enough. Cade's weapons lock finally held. Rain ejected at 1441, becoming the campaign's most senior Kalen pilot to be shot down in a single engagement. Cade did not fire again, watching her rival descend safely beneath his parachute instead of pressing an advantage she no longer wanted. With his strike leader down and his reserve wing decimated, Yun Bao ordered the fleet's full withdrawal at 1510. By late afternoon, radar operators at Skyhaven confirmed what no one had dared to report first. The Kalen fleet was withdrawing. After 31 hours of continuous fighting, the first battle for the Ashen Strait had ended, not in victory, but in survival. Falcon 2 landed for the final time that day at 1547, one of only 6 Meridian aircraft still flight-worthy. Did they find Day? Day Rowe was confirmed alive at 1603, pulled from the water 20 minutes after his ejection, with injuries that would end his flying career. No promises, kid. Skyhaven had held, but at a cost Pharaoh would spend the following weeks explaining to a grieving nation. In Anhai City, the all-clear sounded just after sunset, the first quiet the capital had known in over a day. For Yun Bao, the withdrawal marked not the end of the campaign, but the beginning of a longer, more careful one. Next time, no hesitation. By the following morning, Skyhaven had already begun the quiet ritual of naming its losses, a list far shorter than it could have been. Cade would later say that the hardest part of the battle wasn't the fighting itself, but the hours afterward, alone with what it cost. Not over, Within a week, Skyhaven's runway was operational again, rebuilt by crews working double shifts under the same skies they had defended. New pilots arrived within days, training now under instructors who had, until recently, been students themselves. Quiet mornings make me nervous. Within Kalen Command, the failed crossing was already being reframed, not as a defeat.
Priority alert. Rescue operation is underway. All personnel stand by for retrieval.
But as the first phase of a longer campaign. Rain requested reassignment to train the next wave of pilots himself, determined that they wouldn't repeat his own hesitation. Within a month, fishing boats had cautiously returned to the strait, A fragile normalcy resting on a ceasefire nobody fully trusted. They'll be back. We'll be ready. What happened at the Ashen Strait was not the end of the story. Intelligence reports would soon suggest it was only the beginning.
The fear is a compass, kid. It points you right where you need to go.